Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to another Snapshots and Stories. I'm your host, Paul Owen. It's been a little while since I've been on because, well, I like everybody else. It's flu season, and I happen to get the bug. So I'm just coming out of it now, and it's been a bit of a journey, but anyway, things are looking up, and I'm feeling much better. Now, while I was out and kind of down and on my back for a little bit, I asked some of my viewers if they wouldn't mind sending in some of their photos and some explanations of about the photos. And I was really quite surprised with the response, and I can't thank everybody enough for sending in your photos. And because I wanted to find out, what are people shooting? What's on their minds? What in their mind makes a good photo for them? What inspires them to go out there and even take photographs when they're just maybe just looking for something to do or haven't been inspired for a while. So I'm really happy today to be able to show some of these photographs and other stories that go along with them. So having said all of that, I want to take a couple of minutes to thank our sponsor, Main Street Memories Photo Photography Studios and Services, for sponsoring our show today, and we appreciate that. It's just nice to have some of the community reach out and say, you know what, we'd like to help along with what you're doing. So thank you very much to Main Street Memories. All right, so having said all of that, let's get into the story of some of these photographs. So I'm going to bring up one of the photos here, so just bear with me one second and I will get the photos brought up. I'm going to start with one of our viewers and actually a friend of mine, Vicki Robertson, and I'm going to bring up one of her photos, and then I'm going to switch over to photos here. So now you can see the photograph that she sent, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this particular photo and a few others that she sent. So Vicki writes in, she says, "Hi, Paul. I love panning. I found my passion with photography through panning." Now, panning is a technique where you move your camera side to side at the same speed as a moving subject, using a slower shutter speed to keep the subject sharp while blurring the background. This creative effect is great for sports, vehicles, and, of course, wildlife. My settings are usually between 1/30th of a second to 1/60th, and usually stop down between f9 and f22, depending on how sunny it is outside. If you have not tried this technique, I urge everyone to try it, and it is a very cool effect. So, just as Vicki was saying, it is absolutely wonderful. Now, this particular shoot, I happened to be with Vicki and a bunch of other photographers that day, and this one was actually quite a bit of fun to do. CC Snow, which we've had on the show earlier, brought us up to the stables and was there to guide us along how to take photos of riders and all the interesting things that you need to learn to shoot this type of photography. And Vicki, of course, loves panning, so she decided to do some panning with this rider and this beautiful horse. And as you can see, the movement is certainly there in the photograph, but the horse and the rider are relatively stable. Of course, the horse's legs are moving, so you're going to get a bit of movement there, but very nice job on panning. Let's move to the next one now. So this one here is very interesting. Now, this is a soapbox derby, excuse me, that Vicki likes to take her grandson to. It actually has been for a few years. And so as he was flying down the road, and you can see that the cart and him are both in very good focus, but of course you can see the movement through the cart flying past whatever the background happened to be. In fact, you can't even read the sign on the wall. So another great job of a nice panned image. This one here is the same style of image, but of course a much faster speed. And this is really great if you happen to be in a place where there's all kinds of vehicles that are unobstructed that you can take photos of. Even uptown is kind of a cool place to do it because you can get some really cool building blurred backgrounds on them. But this particular one was this beautiful car. And I don't know if Vicki noticed or not, but the gal inside was waving and she took the photograph. So very, very nice. So you captured the absolutely beautiful still shot in the center, and certainly the pan has created an absolutely wonderful photograph there. Good job on that one, Vicky. Now this was another shoot that Vicky did, and this was up in Riverglade. This is not far from Moncton, and they have these motocross events each year. And Dan Burns actually took us up and did this workshop on panning, and absolutely wonderful shot that Vicky got of this motocross gentleman flying through the air in front of the grandstand. And again, the beautiful still on the bike and the rider, and an absolutely wonderful movement on the pan in the background. So great job on all of those. Vicky, thank you so much for sending those in. All right, so next up, let's see who we're going to look at here next. Let's look at another gentleman from our area. And this fella his name is Frank Loomer. And let's take a look at Frank's first photograph. Okay, let me get up his notes. Okay, so Frank writes, I selected a black and white to produce that special clarity of scene you can't get with color. You suggested portrait in the list, so these are mainly unstaged, naturally lit with some basic Adobe Camera Raw editing for light and shadow. The first is about loving connection, my daughter and her niece, who have a very close relationship. Now, what I really like about this photo, and I guess photos like these, are when you can get really tight in on the people and get tight in on the eyes and the expressions, because that really brings you close up to what these personalities are, and the emotion that's in these shots. And Frank captured this one just beautifully. This was an absolutely wonderful photograph to look at. Every time I look at it, I just smile. It's very, very nice. Great job on that one, Frank. The next one, he says, is this is a simple profile, focus on a face full of early life. So in his photography eye, obviously this was a very young person, somebody who's just starting out in life with all their future ahead of them. And you can see it in their face, the wonderment of whatever they were doing at this particular time. Just a beautiful capture. Again, right on the eyes. So you really captured the emotion of that photograph. Great shot, Frank. Okay, so on this one is a naturally lit staged portrait. I asked my son-in-law to stand in a doorway, which was lit up by the final sunlight of the day. With the background in relative darkness, I cropped for just him in the background. I pushed here more for texture. As it worked out, he executed more presence with eye-to-eye contact. So we just zoom in a bit on that one. Even up nice and close. Excellent light on that. Really great expression. Eyes are both lit. Beautiful catch lights in both eyes. And a very, very nicely done background. Nice and darkened out. Absolutely wonderful photograph. Now, Frank also sent in a color version of this one, which again is a very, very nice photo. So it's really a matter of which one do you like better? Do you like the black and white version, or do you like the color version? So I find them both very, very nice. The color version's a little warmer, and it softens the look a little bit. But when you go to the black and white, always you get the drama from the dynamics in the shadows and the brightness of the image. So both of them are great. If it was my preference, I certainly like the black and white. Great work there, Frank. All right. On this next one. This one's really interesting because I shot one like this myself a long time ago. And it had sort of the same idea as what the shot is. I'll explain to what Frank said on this particular one. He said, on this image, this one is not exactly a pretty landscape, But for me, it collected in one view a variety of the basic energy flows, which engulf us all. The sun, redistributed as burst fossil fuel, as the wind redistributed as electrical power, as the water movement, as growth of natural vegetation, example the trees in this case. Aesthetically, I centered the stacks with the vapor exhaust driven leftwards, with turbine towers flanking left and right. In short, a kind of down-to-earth awareness of an important aspect of the nature of things on which we base our survival and our existence. And I really like this because it shows a lot of very interesting things. All the elements that Frank had talked about that he captured are in this image. And if you sit back and look at it, we're looking at the fossil fuels or the coal, what we take from the ground and burn and create pollution to create what we need for energy, to windmills, which have been around for years and years and years and are certainly more environmentally friendly. And there's that whole struggle between fossil fuel and clean energy going on in a lot of places around the world. And this image really captured that very, very well, especially being in a very natural background or foreground on this scene. So this one really has a lot of meaning in it if you really look at it, and based on how Frank shot it, did an absolutely wonderful job capturing this image. So thank you very much, Frank, for that. Those were absolutely wonderful. All right, let's move on to another photographer who sent in some really great shots, and I'm going to open up the first one. There we go. And this is from my friend Jerry Elaine. And Jerry's been doing photography for quite a long time. So let's just go through some of his photos. So on the first photo, obviously we're looking at a bridge, which is spanning over a river in New Brunswick. And I'll explain through Jerry's words what this photograph is. So Jerry writes, I like taking pictures of bridges and rivers. I stopped and parked the car at a safe area off the bridge and walked on this bridge to take pics in Doketown, New Brunswick. I noticed a small dirt road on the side of the river. I decided to check it out. I very carefully drove on a narrow road and came upon this awesome view. I took it to show how high the bridge is. I included the house on the left to show how big it is. Sometimes you need to go off the beaten path to look for different views. Sometimes there's nothing, and other times, bam, it's a beautiful view. And I agree, Jerry, you actually caught an absolutely wonderful view. In a lot of cases, we would have been just driving across this bridge saying, oh, isn't that nice look up and down the river? But you took the time to stop and get out of your car and have a look around, and it paid off. Very, very nice image. Thank you for that. On Jerry's next image, this one I really find very interesting. Now, this is Gunningsville Bridge, and Jerry writes, I love the golden hour and the blue hour. I walked in Riverview and stopped at this look-off on a small hill to see Moncton at blue hour. I always take my tripod with me and use it to make sure the camera is steady. I used a slower shutter speed. I took some pics and then heard an ambulance coming. I slowed the shutter speed quickly and took the shot as the ambulance went by. This is the red dotted line that you see. The ambulance is moving too fast to show up in the pic, but I knew the red lights would. So again, a fantastic opportunity presented itself, and Jerry was ready because he's been shooting for a while. He knew what he wanted in camera settings to slow down his shutter speed and be able to capture this, and he did. So that red line that he's explaining, of course, is right here. That's the ambulance driving by. But if you look closer, there's a few more things that are going on with this image that I find very interesting. First of all, he's got all kinds of slow shutter speed movement. These are car headlights coming across the bridge. Of course, the ambulance going the other way. And because he's using such a slow shutter speed, he would have had to stop down his F values, which he did. And I'm going to assume that he shot this at around between F14 to F18 because when you look at all the lights that are in the foreground, even the headlights, every one of them's got these absolutely wonderful spikes that are coming off of the lens, and you can actually see some of the blades in the lens creating these beautiful spikes. And if you have ever heard of the term sunny 16, if you take a picture of a sun on a sunny day and you want these spikes, say through, maybe you're in the fall and you're shooting beautiful colors, but you want that sun to, to show those diffraction spikes through the trees, then set up your camera on f16 and go ahead and take your shots and you'll get those. So he's got a lot of very nice spikes, diffraction spikes showing all throughout this image. An absolutely wonderful photograph of the movement of the ambulance, and he caught that very, very well. So that's awesome, Jerry. Thank you for that one. All right, let's see what else Jerry sent to us. Oh, yes. Now, this is an iconic shot. If you live in New Brunswick and you've ever been in the St. George region, this is a shot. It's a must-take shot for any photographer. And this is the St. George Gorge and the waterfalls down there. And this, if you've been through St. George, this is a must-see. Anyway, so what Jerry writes on this one is, I was on a bridge in St. George, New Brunswick, looking at this old mill and the waterfall. I went back to the car and picked up my tripod. I wanted to slow the shutter speed. This makes the running water look like this. It changed the mood of the pic a bit, but it makes the water look very velvety. So if you zoom in on the photograph, you can see how the water comes out, because it's coming out at a fast rate, and his slower shutter speed was able to take, instead of freezing it into every little defined piece of water coming out of that, it's just basically smoothed it out and gives it that velvety, almost like a hairish smoothness to the moving water. And this is anybody who's shot waterfalls. They like to kind of do that, to get that really nice smooth look or velvety look, as Jerry describes it. So the waterfalls in the back and the water that's actually coming out of the mill are both slowed down and created a very, very nice smooth image on the water. The rest of the image, of course, being static, stays the same, so you're not going to get any movement there unless the trees were moving from the wind, but I don't see any evidence of that here. So another very nice slowed shutter speed shot there, Jerry. And let's see what else. Oh, yes. This is very interesting. So I'll read Jerry's explanation first. He says, this is from Windsor, Nova Scotia. So driving in Windsor, Nova Scotia, I saw this very nice bed and breakfast. There we go. I stopped to take a pic. Then I decided to take this image, use Photoshop to turn it into an old postcard, which I'll show you in a moment. Some old buildings look cool, but when I turn them into postcards, it changes the mood. So this, before I show you the postcard of this, I just wanted to show you the image. So the old cars are certainly setting the scene. The building with all of its beautiful antique features all throughout the side of the building. It's just absolutely wonderful. So it's a time period caught to begin with. So it's a very, very nice time period shot. So what Jerry did with it is he went and he used a preset, a postcard preset, and turned it into that. And I think that absolutely nails the look that that building and those cars first of all gave off, and then this particular postcard aged vintage look really puts us back in time, and I really, really like that rendition, Jerry. That's absolutely fantastic. So thank you for that. So Jerry finishes in his mail. He says, when I stop, I always look around the scene if there are different views available. Sometimes, depending on where I am and how it takes to get there, I'll come back at a different time of the day for different lighting. I have an app that I use called, and he didn't put the app name in, but it's either Emphorus or Photo Pills or something along those lines, to tell me where the sun will be at different times. In my scene, the sun facing me, the shot may be better with the sun behind me. So anyway, so he uses that app to plan ahead. So when you're looking at maybe scenes like this one here, for example, depending on where the sun is at that particular time of day, we'll go back to the shot that was actually the photo that he took before he treated it. Yeah, then, you know, it's hard to say where the sun was coming in there based on the shadow I'm seeing on the car. It was almost looks like it was overhead on an overcast day. So it would have been very soft light and very soft shadow. And turning it into that was absolutely wonderful thing to do. So thank you, Jerry, for those. Those are great shots. All right, let's see. Let me see. We can see if we can find another one here. Yeah, actually, I'm going to show these ones because I find these are interesting and for a lot of different reasons. So let me go to Kate's. So these are from Kate Wood. And let me just get Kate's information on here. Now, Kate is not a seasoned photographer by any stretch. She just loves taking pictures. But she took these ones, and I found these ones very, very nice to look at, and her explanation on them was quite nice. So here is photo one, is of Kay Park. Now that's Kennecase Park in and around the Rothsay area, for those not familiar, in southern New Brunswick. And from East Riverside. The photo was just natural exposure from a phone, iPhone 16 Pro. And this was taken on my drive home on December the 27th. The brilliant reds in the sky were captivating, and they certainly were. That area, driving through there, is one of the most beautiful places the sun sets because it's western sky, and it's just absolutely lovely going through there. So very nice capture of that wintry sunset. Now, photos 2 through 5. Now, these ones here are of young deer that born to a herd in Sagamore Point in Rothsay this year. Now, I am unsure if they are male or female, but I particularly enjoy photographing this little one. This particular day, I had an opportunity to try a few filters out as they snack on peanuts and carrots. So there's one shot of the little guy just looking at her, taking photographs, got his face all covered in snow. Then she used the filter. I'm not sure what the filters were. She never specified, but I'm assuming they're filters on her phone. Excuse me. And this is certainly a very heavy vignette, which really emphasizes the face looking for some snacks in the snow. And there he's popping up again with a couple of his either siblings or friends. And he's saying, hey, I'm trying to eat. Very, very curious looking deer indeed. Okay, and that's the ones that Kate had. So thank you for those, Kate. They were very interesting photos. And you just never know what you're going to see when you're out and about and moving around. Now, I think there was one more contributor. Let me just find him for us. And that is Jeff Pendlebury. And so here's actually an image of 2 photos in one. And there's a story behind this, and let's get into that story. So in this particular image, Jeff writes, here is a contribution for you if you wish to use it. A few weeks after Fiona, which was the storm we had here, this famous PEI geological landmark finally carved in, and I happened to be there shooting images of it that day before at Cavendish, not far from North Rustico. Upon walking and hearing the next morning that it was gone, I decided to head back to that location and shoot it all over again, since it was fresh in my mind as to the exact location that I was at. So it was the end of it was at the end of Mackenzie's Brook Arch, and hello to a new sea stack. Certain photo memories, this one does not leave his mind, and he really, really enjoyed this and loved the shot. So you can see here, this would have certainly been an iconic arch that a lot of people in the PEI area would go down and photograph a lot, and he captured it absolutely beautifully. But unbeknownst to him, or beknownst to him, the next day, the arch was gone. So the storm had actually knocked out part of that the sea stack and took away that the biggest part of that arch. Still a very interesting photograph, but my, oh my, look at the difference. And this photo shows really a lot about what Mother Nature does along our coastlines, especially along the Fundy coastline where we live. In this case, it was Northumberland, I guess, but in any event, in the Atlantic area of the ocean, along our coastlines, there are some amazing things to look at, and there are some amazing things to see. Now, this actually happened also at Hopewell Rocks, just outside of, well, just it's in the Fundy Park area. And the same thing happened to, I think it was I think they call it the potter's plant or a potting plant. And it was a stack, something similar to this one on the bottom. And it had a big tree and stuff on it, but it had actually fallen over. So that iconic part of one of the iconic rocks at the Hopewell Rocks area had changed forever. And again, Mother Nature doesn't tell us when, and when she's ready to make a change, she does. So some of us are fortunate enough to, in this case here, to capture what Jeff captured here, an historic time of this seascape, or the sea stack rather, changing formation. So great shot. Thank you for sharing that, Jeff. That was an absolutely wonderful photograph, or of two actually. So those two are really pretty darn nice. Okay, so let's slip back up here to Snapshots again. Okay, I'm back. I really enjoyed walking through these photographs that people send in, because it shows that there are so many different ways to, to take photographs, so many different ideas when we're out there, everything from Vicky's panning, so she enjoys movement in her photos. Some of Frank's portraits were very dynamic in their black and white, the way that he showed them in black and white, created these very dramatic looking images that only black and white shows in certain ways. To Jerry's taking an absolutely wonderful building that looked great to begin with, and then turning it into an absolutely beautiful postcard, recreating not only the look, but the mood and the feel of that beautiful spot, that beautiful bed and breakfast down there, with Kate, with her sunsets and the beautiful deer. And did I miss anybody here? I think I've caught all of them. Frank, Kate, oh, and Alan, showing. Well, actually showing. Did I show the buns of Alan? You know what? I did not. Do I have time? Yes, I do. I have time. I missed one, and I wanted to show this for a lot of reasons. So just hang on. Bear with me. I want to show this photo in particular. This is from Alan Bridges, and I met Alan, I think 2 summers ago, and we had a great chat. Wonderful photographer, great guy to talk with, and I just wanted to show this photograph because this was a very interesting perspective that he put on this one. So Alan writes, here is one shot while photo hunting at the Toronto Zoo, and here's the story on this one. While visiting the Toronto Zoo many summers ago, looking for interesting opportunities and studying behaviors, I came upon the tiger enclosure. A mentor once told me a photograph must have 3 distinct features to hold a viewer's attention. First, it must be interesting. The tiger not sleeping but moving left to right against a rocky background, and the bearing of his huge teeth contributed to the interest. Secondly, it must have good light. Soft or even light gave the subject subtle volume and form without creating harsh shadows. And thirdly, it must be well composed. I am mindful of the rules of composition, which after years of shooting seem to come naturally. However, sometimes an image just seems right. In this case, I noticed the interesting shape of the background rock face and thought it mimicked the tiger's outline. So if you look at the outline of that rock, it actually follows the tiger's body perfectly. There we go, and mimic the tiger's outline. I waited as, am I even showing this? Oh my gosh, sorry about that. Here I am talking about it, not showing you the image. So there's the image. I waited as it would stop and start its movement across the frame and pressed the shutter as the background nicely framed the subject. It made for a nice clean shot, which has some interest. So lesson learned. Look for interest, wait for the right light, press the shutter when you achieve that moment. And sure enough, there it is. So an absolutely wonderful shot of this tiger at the zoo. So thank you so much for that. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, so those are the shots that our viewers sent in. Thank you each and every one for sending those in. I really appreciate that. And for all the other folks out there who want to send some in, please do. I would love to have your stories behind your photos, because it always makes the photograph much more interesting when we know the story behind it. So for now, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next Snapshots and Stories. So long for now.